This is Hannibal here from The Hannibal TV on YouTube, and we are not only on The Hannibal TV tonight, we're also on the two-man power trip of wrestling. JP Dr. John Poz, the doctor of wrestling history knowledge. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good. Other than the sad news of yet another legend has left us, only 60 years old, the passing of Sabu. I'm not sure if he actually died yesterday or if the news came out yesterday, but we were just talking before we went on the air. 2.5, 3 weeks ago, he just had a match. So this is kind of surprising.
And like a crazy match. He wrestled Joey Janela at GCW's obviously spring break, his big show in front of a couple thousand people in Vegas. So it was a big show. It was his big retirement match. Who knew that was really going to be not only his retirement match, but it's just his last match ever? I mean, just crazy because sometimes guys say retirement match and they end up wrestling again, but
Yeah.
different situation here, but it was like a crazy match. Like it was all over the place. He was all over the place. He was taking crazy bumps. Janela was taking crazy bumps. It's actually a really good match, but just really, really just nuts. And to think
You
that he
just
dies a few
interviewed
weeks
Joey
later.
Janela too. Was that interview
Yeah,
before or after that match?
before. So
Okay.
he was injured, and he said Sabu would seem like he might have been injured going in. So they didn't even know if the match was going to happen. He got healthy. Sabu got healthy enough to have the match, and they ended up doing the match. But man, it's crazy to think that they went like balls to the wall, all out. You figure, guys, the last match they might slow it down. No, he was the barbed wire. They're going through tables. He got thrown outside the ring, landed right on his head. I mean, they were just going nuts in that match. Great match though.
Yeah, I did watch an interview with Sabu that was taken probably in the days after that match, and he said he was actually knocked out in that match and didn't remember most of it, and it wasn't going to be his last match because he said it didn't go according to plan because he was knocked out, so he wanted to have another match where everything would go according to plan. But as you mentioned, they went hard enough that apparently he was knocked out. Loopy, and I did see the scene where he's like thrown out of the ring there and hits the floor, and you could see in his eyes like he's not all there, and it is quite scary looking. But yes, great crowd. If you're gonna go out that way. It was actually like 3 years ago. I wrestled him in Texas. He was very hurt in that match. He was extremely hurt. And after that, he had said he wasn't going to wrestle again. Then he ended up having, I think, one more in between random match, then Janela. But I remember before I wrestled him, he had like a little pocket knife in his boot. And he's just pulled up his pants and he's like, "Hey man, let's take it easy out there." And he just kind of like, threatening, but not really threatening. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
going to do
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but it's like that's how old school the guy is. You're not going to be wrestling Joey Ryan and have a guy do that to you. But I mean, I told him, I'm like, "Don't worry, man. I love like you're to me." He's like wrestling royalty. It's like I'll take care of you. He was particularly scared that I wasn't going to catch him on the plancha because he
Right.
said his back was finished, but he wanted to do something still. But yeah, even despite all of his pain, still going out there and killing it in his final match, which was his final match. So that's
Right.
pretty cool.
Right. It is remarkable that that's the final match. That's the way he goes out, 60 years old, and like crazy, basically death match in front of a couple thousand people for basically an indie show, which and he kind of made the indies pretty damn famous in the 90s, if you really kind of think about it. So what a way to go out! Quite fitting that it was GCW, given he had some problems with GCW with the Independent Hall of Fame a few years earlier. So pretty damn fitting ending. And it was funny because when I asked Janelle, I said, "Is this really going to be his last match?" And he says, "I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens." So it really did end up being his final match.
Yeah, and you mentioned the indies. I remember back in the magazine days, I never really paid that much attention to the indies. We'd read about them in the after mags because I mean, you're the exact same age as me. I think
Yep.
42. It was
Yep.
before the internet, and I remember seeing the pictures of Sabu and seeing the barbed wire and seeing the scars. So before I really knew about the indie scene, just his look and the scars really kind of captured my imagination. Seeing him in those magazines.
Yeah, same here, and he looks scary as hell. He's obviously wasn't as big as like you would think just from the magazines about how scary, but it didn't even matter because he was just so damn freaky. It's like this guy can take a hell of amount of pain, a hell of amount of punishment, but he did really kind of put the independents back on the map. And whenever he was around, people wanted to see him. He made a huge name for himself, like you said on the Aftermags. One of those guys that was so innovative, so creative, so different, especially for that time period. Everyone kind of wanted to go out of their way to see him. If there was tape traders, they went and they got the SABU, the tapes, and they were watching him. They were just so fascinated with him. I know other guys would kind of, let's be honest, steal the tables gimmicks from him and kind of bastardize it a bit. But he's the one that kind of made it famous. He's the one that popularized it. He was the one that really was doing all these crazy bumps before any of those guys even thought about doing all those crazy bumps. Pretty damn innovative. And now it's just kind of commonplace. But man, back then it wasn't commonplace at all. And he really started it off. He set it off.
Yeah, and of course the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher before him really getting the tables going, and we could go back to Lawler and Macho Man too. But I
Yep.
heard Meltzer even saying today on Wrestling Observer Radio, even though he was the innovator of the tables, by the time he started making his appearances in WWE and WCW, other people were using tables. So it's not like he got the credit for
Yeah.
being the innovator. I remember when he was in WCW and Halloween Havoc, it was so cool to see him because you'd read so much about him and there was no internet. I didn't know about tape traders. And then the whole mystery of he only really had one or two matches and then disappeared. What were your thoughts of him in those days?
I love seeing him WCW. I thought that was so cool because at that point, Nitro's first starting up, so Nitro's competing with Raw right off the bat. They want to be different. They want something innovative, and everybody kind of remembers, and rightfully so, Lex Luger making his debut because he was just on a WWF house show the night before. He shows up some 4th, 1995, Minneapolis, the Mall of America. Shows up during the Flair and Sting match. Then he comes out at the end with Hogan. So everybody's kind of remembering Luger at WCW at that point. But I was also thinking, like, man, this is so cool. They're bringing in Scott Flash Norton from Japan. They're bringing in Sabu from ECW. Like, they're bringing in all these different guys, and they're making the show so much completely different than Monday Night Raw. It's so unpredictable. You never know who's going to show up. Then all of a sudden, Sabu's wrestling Alex Wright, and you think, oh, this is like a weird matchup. And the match is actually really good, albeit it's short and it's a little weird because Sabu gets the win. Then they take the win away because he puts Alex right through the table. So it ends up being a DQ loss. So they're trying to make him different and crazy and like a psychopath. But it was so cool and so different. It's like, man, this guy's style is awesome. Even when there was like a slight screw up in the match, it looked awesome because it's Sabu. He's nuts. Who cares if it's a screw up? It's just like, it just was cool. It was like, what the hell is this guy? This guy is nuts. He'll do anything. He'll put his body on the line. He'll do all these crazy moves that we really haven't seen before. So it was just cool. And it's cool seeing like Alex Wright, if you think about it, in a match like that. And then you throw in like, okay, who else can work with this guy? Jerry Lynn, Mr. JL. He works with him on Nitro. And I actually think their match on Nitro was better than their match at Havoc. And I liked the match at Havoc too. I thought that was good. It was just so different. It was so like weird. It's like, wow, WCW has the Dungeon of Doom, this corny, horrible gimmick. Like, what the hell are they doing here? Then you have like the Horsemen are starting again, which was cool, and Pillman and he's got Flair, about to turn heel with Arn again because Arn and Flair are feuding. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this guy Sabu is putting people through tables, getting DQ'd. He's just absolutely nuts. It was a really weird time for WCW, but a kind of a cool time. And I wish Sabu would have stayed there longer. He basically wrestles Alex Wright, Mr. JL on Nitro, Mr. JL on Havoc, Disco Inferno on Nitro, and then he's kind of gone. They couldn't get a contract, or he didn't want to stay, or Kevin Sullivan basically was saying it was kind of like equal. WCW didn't really have a lot of guys that could work with him, didn't really know what they were going to do with him at that point, which would be funny. Years later, they would be dying to get him back. But when you look at it, it's like, okay, who's going to work with? What's he going to do here? And they didn't really have much. So he kind of wanted to go, and they kind of were saying, all right, he doesn't have many guys to work with here, but I'm sure he would have rather gotten a better contract. I know the offer wasn't as good as it could have been or should have been. And there's even a couple dark matches that people can't find with Canyon and John Tenta too, which I hope WWF has or maybe can locate. But there's a couple other matches that he had in WCW too that are just
SABU
out
against
there.
Earthquake? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, yeah. Shark,
Wow.
if you will. Yes, yes. And Chris Canning, which is probably pretty damn good. So there was other matches. I just wish he had a longer run in WCW. I thought he was cool in WCW and different and so much different than all the other guys that had. Maybe at that point in '95, maybe too different because he didn't have a lot of guys he could work with. But still, I think if they could have able to maintain him and keep him, they could have given him a nice little push there, a nice little rub, a nice little run. He was awesome at that point. I thought he was so cool, different, and innovative.
And if you look at it, Kevin Sullivan was still in control for quite a while after that. And we both know Kevin was a big fan of Sabu and probably would
Yeah.
have made sure that he got a push. But Sabu was always not trusting, even to go as even going back to the knife. I mean, he knew I was a fan of his and a fan of the Sheik, but he still like won't fully trust anybody. So he probably
Yeah.
wouldn't just put himself fully in the hands of Kevin because Kevin probably would. My guess is Kevin would have made sure he was used properly. He was the booker. Now, did he go back at the end of WCW? I don't remember.
No, but they wanted him back towards the end. They were trying to get him back, and I don't remember if it was Heyman threatening to sue or if it was Heyman claiming Sabu was under contract and that they couldn't use him. But I know there was a bunch of times where Heyman threatened to sue WCW, and then WCW didn't go further. I know Sabu was one of those cases with a contract. I'm trying to remember the exact year, but it was late WCW, and he basically was like, "Oh no, he's under contract." Sabu thought he was under contract with ECW, but he really wasn't. He was free to go wherever he wanted. So WCW was supposedly going to offer him a big time deal. So it was one of those things where Heyman kind of maybe inadvertently or purposely ended up screwing him out of a good amount of money because he was trying to save ECW and make sure ECW was strong enough and had Sabu, and they're going to have him and just Incredible feud or him and Candido or do whatever they were going to do with Sabu at that point. But I feel like if Heyman was just honest and just let him go, he would have been probably a millionaire maybe if he signed that WCW contract. Who knows? I mean, they were offering big money to a lot of different guys. I know at that point maybe they were trying to be cheap, but still, it would have made a ton more money than they did in ECW.
Yeah. And I do think even at one point, Kevin told me he did have a good contract for Sabu. And I think this was further down the line, but Sabu waited too long and there was a change in power. And the change in power nixed the contract when Sabu was actually willing to sign it finally. So he kind of screwed himself. Wasn't he also going to be the Sultan originally in WWE, which would have made more sense than Rikishi if you think about it? But I think he had some issue with the Iron Sheik or something. Or do you recall what the issue was there?
I don't recall the issue there, but I just thought that was like a Vince call, like a Vince move that Vince didn't want to bring him in and do that gimmick because obviously he was a bit different than the Sultan, the kind of like
Yeah.
cartoonish 1980s style heel with Backlund and Sheik, and that was such a terrible gimmick. That wouldn't have fit Sabu at all. I can't really
No.
see him doing that gimmick either because at that point that would have been, I don't know, too corny for him.
I think if Russo was around after, I guess that would have been before Russo came in, right? Because I'm sure Russo
So
didn't invent the Sultan.
he's there at that point, but he's just a
Okay.
producer. He's still writing for the magazine, but he didn't take full control until months later in '97. So that would have had nothing to do with him or his booking or his vision for sure. He would have probably loved Sabu part of the Attitude Era, although he claims he never really watched ECW. So maybe he wouldn't even have been as familiar with Sabu as we think.
Now, speaking of Sabu, people are talking about he should be in the TNA Hall of Fame. Him and Abyss.
Yeah, him and
I'm
Abyss did have some good
a
ones.
TNA
Yeah.
fan. Yeah, could you share some of your memories of him in TNA? Because I only vaguely remember it.
So basically, he came in TNA. I think it was like around 2005. So he's there and he's having some good matches, but they're kind of almost making him into, I guess you could say, like they're doing like an ECW kind of not revival, but they're bringing in a bunch of the old ECW guys. Like he's teaming with Raven a little bit. He's fighting Rhino, but really I liked his feud with Abyss. I thought the Abyss stuff was great. They had a basically, like a no DQ match, like a barbed wire match. They were going crazy. They had actually basically three different matches together that I can remember that were all pretty good on pay-per-view. Basically, Abyss beat him twice and Sabu beat him beat him once. The barbed wire match was really good. I felt like his run there was pretty cool. He did get to wrestle Samoa Joe in a cage. I thought that was a good match. His best match might have been that there was a Monsters Ball match. It was Rhino, Abyss, and Jeff Hardy and Sabu were all in the same match, and that was really, really good. Just typical ECW, like crazy brawl. They're going all over the place type match. But he did have a nice little run in TNA. I kind of wish it was longer in a sense. I know they end up bringing him back a little bit later, but to me, I wish his run in TNA was longer, because he ends up going to WWF after the TNA run. Maybe just to scoop him away from TNA, but then he ends up going back to TNA after that. Had a little run. So I don't know. I feel like maybe he had a longer, better run in TNA, but I do like the Abyss match. I like the Samoa Joe match, and the Rhino 4-way match was good.
Yeah, didn't he wrestle John Cena in WWE? He had some pretty good
Yes.
matches there. I mean, he was in his
Yeah.
40s, I think, but I remember it wasn't like he was over the hill or anything.
To me, I really like that run in WWE, just because didn't see it coming. It's unpredictable. I know obviously they're doing the one night stands, and they're building off of having the ECW guys come in and really use that brand, and then obviously they're going to create their own ECW with it. But when he comes in and he's a part of one night stand, he wrestled Rey Mysterio in a really good match. I liked it a lot. I almost think it should have been longer. It was a world title match too, because Mysterio was champion. Maybe they weren't booking Mysterio as strong at that point, which I know a lot of people obviously say. But I really like Sabu versus Mysterio from the One Night Stand 06 pay-per-view. Thought that was good. There was no contest. There was no winner. But then a month or two later, he wrestles John Cena at Vengeance on pay-per-view, and that match is great. And it's pretty cool to see, like, Cena's actually kind of adjusted the Sabu style, like going through tables and doing all this crazy stuff. Sabu does some awesome leap off the top rope where he kind of catches himself and then jumps off Cena on the announce table and goes through a leg drop. Really cool spots in that match. Just different Cena than you would ever kind of really see, but it was kind of a testament maybe to Sabu to bring that out of him and to give a crazy hardcore extreme style match out of Cena. But yeah, I actually liked that run. Actually, I was at a house show too, and he wrestled Big Show on a house show, and the match was really good. It was in Trenton, New Jersey. So I don't know. I liked the WB run. I thought it was good. You knew like the ECW guys were just kind of brought in as like fodder to lose to Vince's guys. And to be honest, the funniest thing I think about his whole run is, if you remember, Vince sees him backstage and he walks up to him. Is like, oh God, Vince is going to bury Sabu. He's like, oh God, here we go. And Vince goes, oh, you're a towel head. You're from Afghanistan. You're a terrorist. Like saying all this like obvious, stupid, stuff to him, like comedy stuff. And then he goes, wait a second. You're the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu. He goes, you're a psychopath. And he like kind of recoils a little bit. He goes, stay away from me. You're scary, or something like that. And he walks away. So in the end, Vince ends up kind of putting him over. And Sabu's just staring at him the whole time. He's like, Sabu, the great Sabu. So it was kind of funny in a way that Vince rips him at first, but then ends up putting him over at the end of the little promo he did with him.
Here's a good one. Sabu was one of the best to pull off coming out when the lights are off and the lights turn back on. Now
kind of
that's
his
over.
thing. People, they do that so much now. So many people rip it off. That was kind of his thing. Like when you think about it, you turn up the lights, you turn it on, he's pointing up. It's kind of, I know they always do it so many guys, but that's like his thing, really.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. For the Cauliflower Alley, I think it was 2019. My father-in-law was there helping me film. He was going to do that at Cauliflower Alley, and he saw Sabu getting ready. And when they turned the lights off, he turned the lights on the camera, and it showed.
Oh no! So he sees them. Oh man!
Oh yeah! I mean, I could tell. I mean, he didn't say. Maybe that's why he stiffed me with the chair in later years. But I could tell the look that he gave. He was so mad, and I'm like, oh my God! And he wasn't a wrestling fan, so he didn't even realize. In his mind, he's like, I'm helping. I'm shining a light. But
right.
You can imagine my embarrassment at that.
Yes. He's got to know what he's doing there. Come on, you got to know. He actually did. If you remember, he was a part of WrestleMania as well. WrestleMania 23. RVD, Sabu, Sandman, and Dreamer. They beat Burke, Kevin Thorne, Monty Brown, and Matt Stryker. And then that match, which was pretty good, but I feel like they didn't give it as much time. So they ended up not redoing it, but having a rematch a few days later on ECW TV, and the heels went over. Burke, Thorne, Monty Brown and Matt Striker went over in that match, and I feel like that match was even better, and they gave it even more time. But it's pretty cool to see that he was actually part of WrestleMania, and he was even in the Royal Rumble that year, Royal Rumble 2007. So he was a part of WWE a little bit longer, maybe than people realize, and they did give him a couple good spots, maybe not as good as he deserved, but they did give him a couple good spots.
Yeah, and he seemed to leave on fairly good terms with them. Dr. Sebastian remembers my interview with him. I'll tell you a funny story. He was smoking his little marijuana pen during that, and at one point, while we're breaking during the interview, I don't know if he did this as a rib or what. He's like, "Do you want to puff out of this?" I go to take a puff, and it was covered in like goo, as if he had
Oh,
like it was like a baby had been sucking on it, and I didn't
yeah.
want to seem uncool, so I just did it. But like in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my god, I want to puke
He
so
probably
bad."
was ribbing you. Yeah, he definitely was probably ribbing you.
I will say one thing: Super Genie was there with him for that, and he loved her. There's
Mm,
no question. He absolutely adored her. I mean, she I don't know what the cause of her death was ultimately. I know the second time I wrestled him, she was sick and they couldn't even get to the arena. They couldn't even leave the hotel room until just before the show because there was some type of illness in the hotel room.
yeah,
She still came to the show, but she didn't manage him on that show. She had lost her legs by that point.
yeah.
But like he really loved her. I could tell. Like you can tell when someone's in love, and I'm sure that took a lot out of him.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. What a shame with her too, because obviously, I mean, she's a bodybuilder, she's a wrestler, she did all this stuff, and then to have those sort of health problems, just absolutely terrible. And Sabu, he's always by her side. They were always together.
Yeah. My memory of her was that Bill DeMott thing with Zack Ryder and her back in Deep South when he had Festus Luke Gallows do the naked stink faces and she was actually
Oh,
taking. Could you imagine this in 2025? You walk into an NXT development territory and the trainers are holding donuts in front of the trainees' faces while there's a naked guy in the ring and he's shoving his ass.
oof.
It's funny. It wasn't that it was like 19 years ago, but you just wouldn't see that today.
No, 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 definitely not. No, none of that for sure.
So Sabu, he was a two-time ECW world champion. October 2nd was his first one over your buddy, who was Shane Douglas, the franchise. Any memories of that?
So Shane and him, they always, I don't know, to me, they always had good chemistry, but it almost was like they almost shouldn't. Shane is kind of like your meat and potatoes wrestler, old school type guy, and Sabu is like this innovative guy who's all over the place. I always thought that they had good chemistry. And then you throw, because they obviously had a bunch of the triple threat matches with Terry Funk added in, and you would almost think that those matches maybe not wouldn't be good. They always ended up being good. They always ended up having good chemistry. So kind of kudos for Sabu to work different styles, be able to wrestle, be able to do different things, and really kind of just I don't know, not only be like this crazy innovative guy, but he could actually wrestle too. Can actually kind of bring the best out of everybody. I always felt like could really just do any sort of style, but obviously he perfected the hardcore style, if you will, the tables and all that other stuff. But I always felt like he was great in like wrestling matches, if you will. He could actually work.
It's sad just thinking back to those matches, how good Shane was at that point, and he
Yeah.
was never able to translate that character to WWE or WCW. It just never crossed over when he got his opportunities for whatever reason.
Yeah, just injuries. I think WCW kind of played a little bit of a problem with that. WWF, I was just I don't know. I feel like they just hated him for whatever reason. Like they just didn't really. Um, I don't know. They just didn't really work well with him and his style. I know the Click hated him. Scott Hall hated him. They kind of buried him. Shawn Michaels hated him. They kind of buried him. But I don't know. It's one of those things where just it didn't work out for him. It's a weird timing issue, I guess. But obviously, really in ECW, when Sabu kind of first beats him for that title, it was like he wasn't even really the franchise yet either. He kind of didn't even come into his own until later. So I feel like some guys are good in certain areas or certain places or a certain timing of it, whether it's injuries kind of catch up with you or not. But he was just perfect for ECW at that point. And even in '93, he was a hell of a hand. But I feel like when he becomes the franchise in '94 is really when he kind of comes into his own. And then by the time he gets to WF in '95, they were just, I don't know. You could just tell like the Hall wasn't really working with him well. He would kind of sabotage the matches a little bit. Michaels, he should have jobbed to him, and he just wouldn't job to him because he was, too much politics going involved with the clique there, and they just didn't like him. What a shame.
You don't really hear about. I mean, Sabu talks about he had some backstage heat with Flair. Yeah, I know he didn't like Benoit after Benoit broke his neck, which apparently he only took like 2 weeks off from getting his neck broken. He kept going,
Yeah,
but you don't really hear about him having backstage heat with too many people. Maybe it's because people just didn't want to mess with him because he played that crazy character, but he has that side of him like you don't know if this guy's stable or not.
right.
I'm not going to trash talk him or anything. Because yeah, usually like you don't hear a lot of people bashing him.
No, no, because he's usually pretty quiet. I know for a while there, he kind of did the gimmick where he obviously doesn't speak, very, very much like the Sheik. So it's one of those things where I think he kind of almost kept the gimmick, and people in the backstage kind of believed the gimmick maybe a little bit. But he was like, if you ever like talked to him, he's just so calm, and or he was so cool, and kind of was really quiet. So I can't really see him having any backstage issues really with anybody, or any problems with anybody really.
Yeah, and he would have preferred not to talk, but as you said, once his body started to break down, he had to start taking interview payoffs and
Yeah.
so forth. Did you ever do an interview with him?
Yeah, we were actually we were promoting his book. So he was like, "Man, I don't really like to do interviews." He goes, "But I really want to promote this book, so I'll come on." So it was cool, and he knew me a little bit because I had gotten him the booking at one point for an autograph signing, and it was funny. He was even a little like untrusting of like if he's going to actually get the signing or not. I was like, "No, trust me, you're going to get the signing and then get this pay." And when he did, and it became like official, he got signed. He got there. I met him at the show and everything else. He gave me a little bit of a payoff for helping get the booking too. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, wow, what a nice guy. I even got a little bit. Usually guys do if you help somebody get a signing, but some of the guys, to be honest, will just kind of forget that you helped them out and not give you anything. But Sabu was really cool. He made sure I did. He gave me, even when I was there, I remember I saw him. He gave me a couple autographs. He said, just take them, whatever. So he was cool. But I remember I messaged him. I said, hey, you want to promote the book? I want to have you on the show. He's like, I don't really like to talk. I don't really like to do much, but I do want to promote the book. So I will come on and I'll do it. So you can kind of tell, not reluctance, but he's just one of those guys just not comfortable talking, not comfortable speaking. He's not like the franchise where you give him one sentence and he can go off for a day talking about everything. Sabu is a kind of very quiet, calm guy. Didn't really like to talk too much. Even when he had his own podcast for a little bit there, he was kind of almost he was open, but he was very quiet a lot of the times. So you kind of have to drag stuff out of him.
Yeah, and speaking about your autograph days when you were doing that side of the business, for people that don't know, John was on the autograph side of the wrestling business for a while, working in it. And I happened to watch on Tubi yesterday David Arquette's movie,
Oh yeah,
and I can say the only thing I liked about it was I'm watching it and suddenly you're on it. You got
nice.
a good
That's
like
right.
10 second. I'm like, holy crap, John's on
That's
David Arquette's movie. Other than that,
yeah.
I can say I liked Ready to Rumble better
Really? Okay. All right. All right.
than Who Killed It. But you did great. You look great in your suit. I was surprised to see you.
So I read a signing down in Virginia. It was like it's kind of like an NWO thing. So I had Arquette was there separately, but we had Bischoff, Hall, and Nash were there. So it was a little bit of an NWO reunion. But I got contacted by the guy that was directing and creating his documentary, and he's saying he's going to be in that town. Can you set something up? So I actually set him up with a backyard wrestler. I actually set him up with my buddy Rick Kelly too. He kind of traveled around with Rick a little bit in that documentary. Set him up with this backyard wrestling league, which which is nuts. Arquette went and did some backyard wrestling. Then I
Yeah,
had
the light tubes and stuff, right?
yeah, a little crazy. Yeah, he was crazy, but just he wanted to kind of get the whole feel of everything from A to Z for wrestling. But then I set him up for a little bit of a training camp with a guy who trained wrestlers in Virginia too. It was basically in a barn, but it was kind of cool because he was so humble, Arquette. He was sweeping the ring, he was cleaning the whatever, cleaning the floors. He was doing everything that he said that he would do if he was not David Arquette, if he was a rookie. So he was so humble and he was so cool. But I thought it was awesome hanging out with him that day and set him up for the autograph signing. He was saying like a lot of the fans were a little bit negative towards him because maybe they didn't like the fact that he was WCW champion. Maybe they didn't like the fact that he wrestled and stuff. And I said, it is what it is. You weren't the one that wrote it. You're not the one that recommended it. You didn't want to be champion. You didn't want to wrestle. You're just a huge fan that just were like a part of it. So it's not really his fault, but I know a lot of the fans were kind of blaming him and were like upset with him in certain regard. But man, what a cool guy. That was a cool experience. He was awesome that day.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is I don't know about like to become a wrestler, you shouldn't necessarily have to take all the light tubes and stuff in random people's backyard, but
He went too
made
far
for
with
good.
it, yeah. Yep.
And I'm glad he survived the thing with, I forget his name, the guy in LA that sliced his throat.
Oh, Nick Gage.
Yes, I'm glad. I'd love to interview him sometime, and I'd love to wrestle him maybe one day. But as far as Sabu's second title reign, he won the title from Terry Funk in that infamous Born to Be Wired '97 match that I actually went back and watched today. And I mean, what a brutal match.
Brutal.
Disgusting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it?
To me, I don't know. To me, sometimes that can get just a little too much for me. I know I wasn't a huge ECW fan to begin with, but I love Sabu. He was just so different. He was so cool. But I know some of the stuff they did was like no psychology, and supposedly had the smartest fans who really weren't the smartest fans. I mean, they would cheer for like the weirdest and like odd stuff, and boo like good wrestlers, and boo guys you shouldn't be booing. It's just they're very, very weird, strange audience. But they loved Born to Be Wired. They loved Sabu getting the win over Funk. But to me, I don't know, that match was just a little disgusting, a little like there he said it perfectly, a little gnarly. I don't know, it was a bit much for me. I'm not really too much on like the crazy violence. I do like the violence, I'm all for it, but to me sometimes like cutting the guy open and sometimes you can get too much with those death matches and the barbed wire matches. It could just be too much sometimes. I wasn't a huge fan of that match. I actually really liked the triple threats that they had at Hardcore Heaven when it was Shane, Terry Funk, and Sabu, more of a traditional extreme match, I guess you could say, or just more of a traditional match. I like that a lot better. And I love Sabu. I think Sabu's one of the best guys in ECW. I think was crazy and off the wall, but just to me, that match was just a little too much. Even like pulling the stuff, pulling the barbed wire out of his head and stuff. I don't know. To me, it got a little too much. I know those fans love it. The bloodthirsty ECW fans loved it.
And the thing I don't like about that, and going back and rewatching it, it's like it doesn't look like they're having a fight. Particularly at the end, it looks like they've just performed a bunch of stunts where they were working together to perform stunts, and they ended up getting themselves in serious trouble due to some malfunctions with the props, which apparently, according to Bill Alfonso, they bought the wrong kind of wire.
Right.
They bought the larger wire. But yeah, to me, it's like the suspense. It's not like these two are trying to kill each other. It's like these two are trying to perform stunts without hurting each other that are violent, but they're still going to get hurt to an extent. But it doesn't look like, oh, these guys hate each other. They're trying to kill each other.
Very much Japanese death match style. Like, let's just do crazy shit. Just do crazy stuff and try to, get a big pop.
AEW is ridiculous with what they've been doing. Hey, at least they're making a ton. Like, God, if you break down what Moxley makes per appearance to take a couple nails in the back, I mean, I'll take that any day for that price. And there's doctors backstage. I mean, Sabu's going to the grocery store getting super glue. At least AEW, they got doctors.
Yeah. That's the one thing about AEW. I got to compliment them on. These guys are all getting a payday. They're all getting paid very nice. Apparently, Tony Khan treats these guys very well. Just watch Maven back there. He was treated like $1 million, and he's not an AEW.
Maven was back. What the hell? What have I been missing?
He was backstage in AEW. He was filming and stuff. They let him back there. He was interviewing with Tony Khan. they let him back there, so it's cool. So you got to give it to Tony on that, and he pays the guys. ECW was kind of infamous for maybe not paying some of the guys, and Sabu should have been rich, and he didn't end up rich. He ended up still working at the age of 60 because of kind of what ECW did and kind of what Heyman did and screwing him over. And really, if you think about it, I mean, the guy really innovated his style. He was one of the best. He was creative as hell. He was just one of those guys that everybody knows, and everybody would be like, "Wow, I got to go out of my way to see." And he wasn't paid accordingly. He wasn't paid right, and a lot of the ECW guys weren't. And he didn't help him after the fact either. Maybe getting him into WWF a little bit here and there, but I don't know. I feel like he got screwed big time from ECW. Yeah. AEW pays the guys, and they maybe you could say overpays, maybe, which is nice for the wrestlers because they only work a couple days a week.
Yeah, not even a couple. I think somebody averaged it out, and like most of them don't even work one day a month if you average it out for the year.
Really?
And they just released a bunch more last week. And I'm looking at these names, I'm like, who are these people? And they've been under, and I guess Tony Khan just lets them sit out their contract. It's like, I literally have never heard of you until I'm reading about you being released, and you've been under contract. So
I do like that he does that, though. Like, he doesn't release you. You go to the end of your contract because, hey, I signed a contract. Unlike WB, they'll cut you whenever the hell they want to cut you because that's business. And we're supposed, you're supposed to just agree with business. But I like that Tony does that because I know sometimes the guys are sitting at home, but wouldn't you rather sit home and be getting paid to the end of your contract like you thought you were going to be rather than being cut and have to, fend for a job and do other stuff and find other stuff to do? So I at least like that about him. That is pretty noble of him.
Gianni mentioning that they saw him last weekend in Philly. I think that was at the TWA One and Done. Only sadly had about 100 or so fans. I don't know if it wasn't promoted that well or what, but at least the Philly fans that were there got to see Sabu one time at the arena. I actually did a small interview with him once at an arena. I saw you that day too. I think you had Credible and Shane Douglas. I forget
Shane,
what convention that was.
Yep.
But Melina was there with her dog that day too. I remember that.
Yeah.
And as far as his tag team championships, Tasmaniac back in '95, I guess, was his first reign defeating the Public Enemy in a double tables match. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember ever seeing that. I just know that it happened because you look at the guy, study the guy, so you read like his bio and stuff and see who he beats here and there. But I always felt like Public Enemy were great. Just they're like two white guys, pure white guys, pretending to be black, and their theme music and everything. They were great. I just love them. But they kind of did take the Sabu gimmick. You know what I mean? Like they kind of did take the tables, if you will, and kind of try to make it famous. And obviously, then the Dudleys took it another step further and took it on the big stage in WWE. But I feel like Sabu kind of gets forgotten and Public Enemy stealing kind of the gimmick, and then the Dudleys is stealing the gimmick. I don't know, kind of not getting enough credit for the tables as he should. I know Bubba today on Busted Open was giving him props, but I don't know. I felt like maybe he should have been giving him props this whole time.
Speaking of the Tasmaniac, it's too bad Tony Khan. I mean, he gave Sabu a couple payoffs, but like we can clearly say he's taken care of Taz. I don't know how much Taz makes. It's got to be in the six figures, but what's it been 6 years now? He's had a job, and you could argue that Sabu. I mean, I don't know if he could have contributed more or not, but I don't even know if. I mean, I guess Taz is good to have around, but does he bring in any ratings or anything? I really don't know.
It's like he's like the third commentator. I guess he's kind of like the heel commentator. You kind of need a little bit of a change. But Hook, his son, is there too, so I think that just kind of goes a long way with Hook, that he's got his dad there and everything. So I don't know. I think that's probably a good thing. And Taz is still doing his thing as the announcer.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. I mean, there's some people that, as I said, and I like Taz overall. I've had some communication with him over the years.
He's a cool guy. Yeah, very nice guy.
He definitely is not going to do interviews other than
no.
Because he's getting all this money. But I like that at least AEW, like with Jake the Snake, he'd still be on the indies, but he's getting those payoffs. There's some people that get it that don't deserve it, but then there's other people that I'm happy it's around because it's like Taz is making the money now that he should have made in ECW.
Yes.
in my
100%.
opinion.
And I know Heyman did help him get to WWE, which he didn't really do for Sabu at that time period. So, well, good for Taz for sure. The Taz Sabu feud, everybody loves that feud. Obviously built up
Yeah,
to barely legal. Man, very cool and different as far as they didn't really touch beforehand, which is like a big thing nowadays. And many other feuds, the guys beating up each other this week and they switch the next week and they kind of goes back and forth and back and forth. But that was a cool feud just because I know they wrestled before and they teamed before, like we were mentioning. They were as Maniac and Sabu and then feuding and teaming and doing all of those stuff. But leading up to 97 and leading up to Barely Eagle, they really did this thing where they didn't touch and it really built anticipation and it really kind of built that feud. And that wasn't the main event, but they kind of built it. I know Taz was in charge of the posters and doing different things and the t-shirts. So it was built up and high, as far like a level of importance on the card. But I feel like the fans really made it that level because they were so amped and they were chanting like that. They really were like pumped and, F them up and this is awesome. Not this is awesome. That's like corny chant nowadays, but they were really, really getting amped up for Taz and Sabu. They really wanted to F them up and all this other stuff. And they didn't even touch. So that's different, which is obviously Heyman's booking too, but that's Sabu, old school, Taz, old school. Like, we don't even need to touch, and we got these fans in the palm of our hand. And then when they did wrestle, had a damn good match at Barely Legal that year as well.
yeah. I seem to recall that Sabu, I don't think really liked Taz overall. I mean, they
No,
got around, but in real life,
yep,
he
not
thought that he
his
had
type
too
of
much
guy.
of an ego. But I haven't seen it, but I know Taz put something out, remembering Sabu, and of course,
Yeah,
I
he was
think
very
that,
emotional about it. Yeah, it was good.
well, I mean, it's got to get emotional when it's one of like when you're working with someone and he's your age and you're connected with him and he's dead. It's like that's kind of a wake up call. It's like, okay, we're getting up there. I could
Yes, kind
go.
of
I mean,
scary. Yeah, it's scary, big time.
yeah,
And if you
they,
look at it, like obviously that's 30 years ago. They made the Heat 30 years ago. They definitely passed. They definitely were friendly more now than they were then. So they probably got over it and kind of reminiscent, like, hey, that we were great chemistry. Maybe we didn't get along, but we did it for, obviously we're working together for the money, for our safety. We're trying to better the company. So you look back as you get older and you kind of reminisce. It's like, man, those were some great times and some great matches. Completely different styles those two had, and they were able to mesh well. Again, testament to Sabu. He could wrestle with anybody and have a pretty damn good match.
for sure. And I can even say that about myself. He got me through a couple of decent ones, even though he was injured. I'll tell one more funny story about him from when I wrestled him in L.A. I drop him off, and it's like this hotel parking where there's like metal things hanging from the ceiling, and I had like an SUV. Instead of closing the trunk after he got his bags out, he just kind of tapped on the side, and I thought he had closed the trunk. So I start to drive off, and the top of it just bashes one of these metal rafters, and it just the glass shatters everywhere.
Oh, damn.
Thank God I got insurance. Thank God
Yeah.
they covered that. But I was a little hesitant being in LA because I was too lazy to bring it back in between, and I was afraid someone was going to break in and steal the SUV. But that's just funny, stupid wrestler stuff. Like, he doesn't think to close. It's like he tells me
Yeah.
to drive off. Again, maybe he's ribbing me. Just drive off. See you later, buddy.
Yeah.
Slash. But
Maybe he's ripping you there. Yeah. But obviously that could be dangerous.
yeah. But yeah, that's just one of the funny moments with him. Of course, he also teamed with RVD. They held the ECW Tag Team Championships twice. Bill Alfonso managing them. What did you think of that pairing?
I always thought that they were good together. And you would think random, but no, both trained by the Sheik, both kind of came up in the same area, both really good chemistry together, both really good friends, just almost basically like not related, but they're almost like cousins in a certain sense, due to the Sheik and their closeness. So I always felt like that was a great combination. They had some good matches together, but almost better as a team. I really like Heat Wave 98 when they tagged against Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinsaki, which I don't know, maybe it doesn't get as much love as it should, but it's so different, so creative, so cool. And you're bringing over these awesome guys from FMW and these awesome guys from Japan, and who could work with them, but of course, SABU and of course, RVD. So I always felt like great tag team, great chemistry. They had really good matches kind of with a bunch of different teams, but I really thought that match was great. Just stood out to me because it was so different, especially for the time. It's like, oh, it's pretty cool. They're bringing in these Japanese guys who were really good workers, and SABU and RVD are keeping up with them.
Yeah, the last time I interviewed RVD, he was actually talking about wanting to do like a retirement match tour with Sabu, going to some key cities and having like final matches. So it's too bad that never came to fruition. And I heard RVD actually hurt his heels at a recent MLW event while getting thrown
Yeah,
out of the ring. I really
yeah.
like RVD. He's genuine and real, and I'm sorry to hear that.
It looked like it too. Like when you're on the top rope, it's like where else could you go? And it's obviously over the top rope and out. It's the battle royal, and it's Matt Riddle and him, and they're the last two guys. Like it's almost like that spot. It was kind of cool, but like where else could you go? So he just pushed him off, and he goes to kind of jump as far as he can, land on the floor, and he looked like he landed pretty hard, right? I guess on both of his heels. So you know, maybe if you're younger, you could take that spot and you're totally fine. But it was definitely like a high fall, if you will. It was a rough landing.
That's too bad. Well, hopefully he can get some stem cells or something. And that sounds like it might need surgery, though.
Yeah, hope not.
Someone bringing up Balls Mahoney telling a story about Sabu almost drowning in a hot tub, but he survived nearly drowning. I don't know if I heard that one, but Balls Mahoney and another one that went pretty young.
Pretty pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever hear that about the hot tub?
No, never heard that one. No, interesting though. I believe it. If Ball said it, I believe it. He was a pretty wacky guy, pretty crazy.
Did you ever see Sabu in the ECW arena itself?
Ooh, for 3PW, I believe I have. Yes, I don't know if never for ECW at the arena. Although I'm trying to think if I went post ECW to a show and he was there, he might have been on it. But I don't know. I don't think so. But like obviously watching it, it's a different vibe. It's a different feeling when he comes out. Because some guys are over, and like I mentioned before, that they're weird crowds. So some guys are over that shouldn't be over. Some guys aren't over that should be. So they're like a hard crowd sometimes. He was always over with everybody. Like it was like electric when he came out. Then that theme song from Harry Slash was awesome. The Hoka Blues, if you will. What a cool theme song he had that kind of just went with him perfectly. So I don't know. Whenever he came out, the vibe was different. I was like, oh, this guy stinks. Or like for some reason, I have a friend and he would always tell me that Sandman was great, right? And that Spike Dudley was great, but would never say Sabu was great. And I was like, wow, you're a complete idiot because Sandman is what he is. Spike Dudley is just good at taking bumps. Sabu's actually awesome. Like this guy, he's innovative, he's creative, he does all the crazy moves. He can actually work, he can actually wrestle, he can take a beating. He's got all these scars all over his body. So my friend Dave is basically a huge moron, and I got to throw that out there because it's always kind of annoyed me. Not putting over Sabu. Everyone else in the arena, who's the toughest crowd to get over with, is putting Sabu over, but not this guy. This guy puts over Spike Dudley over Sabu, which is nuts, and Sandman over Sabu, which is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, those are all classic characters. I guess it depends. I guess it
They're not as
depends
good as
on your
Sabu.
taste.
Not even close. Come
As
on,
far
even
as match quality, definitely
but look,
Sabu.
you put those guys in New Japan. Can they work with those Japanese guys? No. You put Sabu in Japan. He's got an awesome match with Grand Amada. Have an awesome match with Cody Kanemoto. Like, come on, Sabu is awesome. You can't put those guys over Sabu. Oh, come on, that's just crazy.
RK says he thinks TNA is going to acknowledge him this week. Well, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure WWE and AEW have already acknowledged him. I know
Yes.
they've each put out graphics.
Yep.
I know Tony Khan was a big ECW fan, so I can imagine they'll probably
Huge. Yeah.
be more.
He used to go to the shows. He went to the arena, Tony.
And now they're bringing AEW there for 7 shows. The one thing I will say about AEW, though, they got their good and bad, but like NXT did it the right way. You go for one show, it's special. It's like they go to the Hammerstein Ballroom, it's 3 or 4 times. They're now coming 7 times to ECW. So it's like, one time it's cool, but it's like at the end of the 7 days, it's like, oh, they're back here again. I mean, I get
It
why
is
they
weird.
do it. But
to save money, but do they really need to save money? They're just making 185 million a year off of Warner Brothers Discovery, that big deal they had. So they did well there, and obviously we're I think due to make money this year. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they were due to make money this year due to that deal. So it's weird when you do like residencies and stuff. I always thought that was kind of like to save money, and like, do they really need to save money doing that? And if you look at it, ECW Arena only holds about 1,000 people now. With like the way it's been redone, it's a way nicer. 2,300 is really nice now, but it really only holds maybe 1,000 people or so. Maybe you can sardine some more people in, but it doesn't really hold as many as you would think for an
Yeah.
AEW show.
And
You would
they
think
may
they
have a
would want to
bigger
get more
setup
people.
too. They may have a bigger setup because I know for Battleground they sold out recently at 900 something.
Yeah,
So
so maybe they'll expand it or change the setup or maybe do something a little different. But yeah, it is tight in there. Like when you fill it in, but it is a great crowd and it is a great audience. Like you said, though, if you do it once or twice, I think that's good enough. But 7, I mean, that's kind of overdoing it and definitely killing it. But obviously, there's got to be some financial savings by doing a residency there for 2 weeks and doing 7 shows and doing all that. It must be some sort of financial, kick in and there's some kickback or whatever for him. But
yeah,
really, I would do it like you said, like do it special, 1 show, 2 shows, and really blow it off. Like TNA did 2 shows there back to back. And I thought that was a cool thing because the Hardys were wrestling on this show and they did a little bit something on this show and they try to make it a little bit different. But I thought 2 was great. They sold out both of the nights. So AEW, I think easily will sell out. But I mean, 7, it kind of, you lose the speciality of it. And him being
yeah.
such an ECW fan, it's like you really kill the speciality of it.
Yeah, it's like do a special Dynamite or something, or
Yeah.
maybe a week of Collision Dynamite and bring ECW people in like they did with Rhino in Detroit recently.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
come on, this overkill, I don't, whatever. They can do what they want, but to me, it's just like now I hear they're doing a lot of Collision and Dynamite tapings together again to
Yeah.
again save on costs, but they're doing Collision after Dynamite. So a lot of the
It's a
fans are
long night.
leaving. It's
Yeah,
like
it's a
you're
long
putting
night.
on the worst part of the show after the good part. Shouldn't you build up to a climax or something?
Yes.
I don't know. It's strange to me.
They have to
It's
work on that
puzzling.
too. Or even if they wanted to, maybe split up the roster a little bit because there's so many guys on the roster and just make some guys Collision guys, some guys Dynamite guys, and just try to stick to that and maybe put on like what the best of what you can in Collision and maybe run that in a smaller venue and then, obviously run Dynamite as you run Dynamite, but they got to do something to differentiate it and just make Collision more like watchable, more must see. I know there's been some good, I've even seen some good Collisions where I was kind of surprised, like, wow, that was actually, a good show, or they did well tonight, a couple of good matches, a couple of good storylines, whatever was going on. But I feel like they need to do a better job of putting maybe differentiating factors onto 2 different shows, even if it's maybe 2 different rosters, so that you can sell out 2 different shows instead of doing 4 hours of tapings back to back.
Yeah, and I heard Meltzer saying it's so random the people they use, and because they don't always advertise, bring the people that are on the posters. Like
You
with
don't
WWE,
know.
you kind of
Yeah.
know who you're going to see. With AEW,
Yeah.
it's like you're going to the show, but are the Young Bucks going to show up, or are they on one of their hiatuses, or
Right. He's
who's
he's
actually there?
100% right on that because you don't know who's on the show. Like, oh, Copeland, he's on the poster, not on the show. FTR usually on, but sometimes they're on the poster, sometimes they're not. It doesn't make sense. They need to do a better job with that for sure. Whoever's in charge of that. I know Tony in the end, but who's ever doing the posters, you got to make sure who's ever on the posters on the show.
Yeah. Oh well. I'm glad again. At least SABU got a payoff. I just think I wish they would change things around just to maybe be a bit more competitive with WWE because that's better for the whole industry. And it just
Yeah.
seems like the gap is just keeps expanding, and they don't seem to be changing in a good way. They don't seem to be like you would think they would like change a little bit if the gap is growing, but they just seem to be going down that same path. I would like to see their rosters though. I know you're a big fan of the Costco guys. They're under contract, aren't they?
Yeah. Yep.
They hardly use them. I mean, it's just weird. And then they bring in guys. You have all these people under contract, and now Zach Gowen's being used. It's like you have so
Yeah.
many you're
Weird.
not even
Yeah.
using that are already under contract. You need to bring in extras. I love Zach Gowen. He's a great guy. Good for him. But it's strange. Puzzling is definitely the word.
Yeah, I don't get that. It's like they use a million guys, but you have a million guys. Like it's random guys. Rhino gets used, which is cool, but it's like, man, you have so many other guys you could be using.
Yeah, and he didn't even. I heard like they didn't even sell out the second night, and that place only holds like 1,000 people or something. I heard in Detroit, so it's like it's not even like he helped the draw.
It's just weird, like the way that it's going. It's like Dynamite and Collision aren't selling as well, but the pay-per-views always do well. And like I'm looking at advanced ticket sales for a couple pay-per-views down the road here, and they're selling well. So it's like their big shows sell. The fans definitely attract the big shows. The weekly shows that the fans aren't that interested in, and they're really not really that good, or they're not compelling. It's almost like the fans just want to get to the pay-per-views and watch these good matches, and they don't even care about almost like the setup of it because they don't enjoy it.
Interesting. I know Sabu. I mean, he had that high flying style. Did he wrestle in Mexico much?
That's something I don't know if he wrestled much in Mexico, to be honest. That I can remember. I don't really remember him wrestling too much in Mexico at all. I know more of like Japan, like that was more of his go to or his style, or a lot of his style was adapted from Japan. I just don't really remembering him wrestling too much in Mexico. I would imagine yes, but I don't really remember him wrestling too much in Mexico. FMW, yes, in Japan, but I can't recall Mexico as much. And obviously New Japan and Big Japan and even some All Japan, but I don't remember Mexico at all.
Someone remembers Sabu on the Raw Invasion episodes back in. It
Yeah, that was cool.
wasn't
He jumped
93, it was I think
97.
96, 97, yeah.
Yeah, and he jumped off the entranceway there. That was cool over the Raw sign, if you will. And then one of those things where is he supposed to do that? It kind of adds to the lore, the legacy, or his legendariness. So, like, almost seems like that's very un-WWF style to do. And he was like, "Screw it, I'm doing it."
Did you read his book?
I never did, no, but I heard it was pretty good. I know Kenny Casanova did the book. Very interesting. Some interesting stories in there. So if anybody hasn't checked that out, check out Sabu's books. I think what was it called? Scars and Super Glue, the Sabu story.
Something like that, yeah. No. Yeah, I remember when it came out, he was doing all kinds of podcasts on it. Some people were telling me it was very controversial, so that's why I was wondering. But I'm not going to repeat any of that unless I've actually talked to someone that I know is
Yeah,
credible
I
saying
haven't
that.
read it. There might be some stuff because he was very honest. Like he wouldn't bullshit you. So it's called
Yeah.
Scars, Silence, and Super Glue, Sabu. So check that out. But you know that he's not going to mince words. He's not going to hide anything. If something happened, he's probably going to he's going to say it and he's going to put it in the book.
What's your favorite Sabu match? Let's put you on the spot here.
Ooh, damn, that's a good question. It's funny. I really do like Sabu versus Taz from Bare Legal. I thought that was good, but I don't know if that was his best or my favorite. There's actually, this is like kind of random, but I do love him versus Mr. JL on Nitro. I thought that was great. Him versus Abyss. They had a couple of good matches in TNA that I liked. I liked his match with Samoa Joe. I actually do like his match with John Cena. I liked his match with Rey Mysterio in WWE. I
You
do
like a
like,
John Cena match? You got to be
I know,
kidding me! You're his
it's
biggest
shocking.
fan.
I know,
I have
I
to agree with you though. His comeback here has been the best thing. Has been his turn, but they didn't follow through with it.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
can just pretty much paint this as an epic fail
Yeah,
to me.
not good, and he shouldn't be in the main event and stuff like that. But that's a different story for a different day. But I did like the Sabu match. I feel like Sabu maybe carried him a bit, just like Orton carried his ass on the pay per view on Sunday big time. But so yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, Hardcore Heaven. I do like Sabu versus Terry Funk versus Shane. Thought that was great. There's a match actually versus Too Cold Scorpio. That's actually really good. If you go all the way back to '96. Forget the name, what show it was, but it was Scorpio and him had an awesome match at ECW. Cyberslam '96. Definitely the Too Cold Scorpio match, but he's had a bunch. I love him and RVD versus Jinsei Sasaki and Hayabusa, but Sabu I feel like had a bunch of good matches, or a ton really.
As far as Scorpio, have you heard any update on his? I
No,
don't
actually,
know
I was
what
thinking
the.
about him recently. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything but that.
Yeah, and I mean those are two guys that I have to say I wrestled both of those guys, and like you feel it after wrestling those guys. Those guys,
Yeah.
Scorpio in particular, laid the biggest beating on me I've ever had in LA for PCW Ultra. I tore my pec in that match, had severe concussion, got the crap kicked out of me. Sabu did the same thing. I mean, these guys are hardcore. They call them hardcore for a reason. I mean, even Sandman. I don't know how old he was when I wrestled him, but we had both had some beers before going out there, and we were basically just having a bar brawl. Like, these guys are tough. Like,
Yeah. Oh
Sandman's
yeah.
taking on a guy 15 years, 20 years younger than him,
Yep.
like
Oh yeah.
going blow for blow. I mean, these guys are tough no matter what you want to say about them. And speaking of tough, I overheard you in one of your interviews. I think it may have been with Ted Arcidi, but I might be wrong. Could have been with Vince Russo, where you mentioned that I think your brother-in-law or your sister-in-law knew someone that went to high school with Bam Bam Bigelow. Of course, you're from Asbury Park. The legends of Asbury Park are
Yes.
what? Bruce Springsteen and Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Bam Bam helped this guy in a high school fight. I got to hear this story.
So it was a crazy fight, like a huge brawl broke out. Neptune High School is where he went to, which is not too far from Asbury Park. It's basically right next door to Asbury. But it was my wife's uncle. And they were on the wrestling team together. They were good friends. He said he was an awesome guy. He was such a cool guy. But my wife's uncle's not that big, and Bam Bam is really big. And a huge fight broke out, and everything was just, I mean, they're throwing glass, all this stuff's going on. And he turned to my wife's uncle and was basically, they're in high school at this point, but he's like, do you want to stay here? You want to brawl? Or like, because Bam Bam could go either way. Like, I could brawl. You want to brawl? You want to get out of here safely? I can get you out of here safely. What do you want to do? I don't care. So he basically turned to him. He said, what do you do? He goes, honestly, he goes, can you get me out of here? He's like, now they're throwing glass. And it devolved into like this crazy fight. Bam Bam put him kind of underneath him and like guarded him and shadowed him, blocked him and walked him out. They're throwing stuff, whatever, and Bam Bam's just kind of taking all the punishment and got him out of there and got him to safety. But he said if he wanted to, Bam Bam would just kick everybody's ass. But he was more concerned with getting his friend, my wife's uncle, out of harm's way and getting him out of the fight. So I thought that was really cool. Like, what a kind of like stand-up guy. He really isn't. You hear the story of him saving those kids from the fire and stuff, like, so he kind of is like a real life baby face if you really look at it. Even back then was a hero.
What did he do with the to get these guys throwing glass at him? What was he, a major heel to the other kids in high school?
It was just they were there and everybody, it was devolving around them into fights with other people. So it wasn't necessarily them per se, but they could have gotten involved because it was friends of theirs that were getting into this fight. So they could have gotten involved if they wanted to, or they could have just got out of there and let their friends deal with whatever they started. So really they didn't start it. They were just a part of it because they knew the people that were getting in this crazy brawl. So Bam Bam was like, I can either stay and fight or I can leave it. So he decided, my wife's uncle's like, I don't want to fight. I want to get out of here. We didn't start it. We're not going to end it. We had nothing to do with it. Let's just get out of here. And Bam Bam was like, all right. And he had basically guarded him and prevented him from getting beat up. And obviously Bam Bam's not getting beat up. Even if you hit him, he's probably not going to, take too much of a punishment.
Yeah, because he was a top high school wrestler. I
Yeah.
understand. So was he friends with this guy, or was he just seeing a guy in harm's way and be like, "I'm gonna help
No,
this
no,
guy"?
they were friends. And he saw him like, hey, are you sure you're okay? You might be in trouble if this breaks down. You're kind of a smaller guy. They were on the wrestling team together. Bam Bam's the heavyweight. He's in one of the lighter divisions, so they were buddies.
Okay, very, very cool story. Yeah, it's too bad about Bam Bam. I mean, we've all made mistakes. God knows I've made mistakes, but like, if he had held his act together better when they were teaming him with Hogan in the late '80s, he would have been a top star, like a
Yep.
top main eventer. But WWE, once you screw up, they're never going to give you that cherished, very top spot again. They're never going to trust
Plus
you.
politics too at that point. He was a young guy. He was not a rookie, but he was younger in the business at that point. And like, wait a second, all of a sudden this guy's coming in and he's getting this push. Well, like, why is he getting this push? So I feel like politics played a role then, and then back when he came back in the mid '90s too. I feel like the click and politics played a role again in him not getting a push. So I feel like he wasn't political enough, maybe when he could have been or should have been, and maybe he was a little immature in the late '80s too. But I feel like, yeah, one man gang of Virgil. There you go. But I do feel like he definitely politicked out of some spots too.
One man gang is the only one alive out of that crew, and he's a really good guy. Have you ever interviewed Akeem, the African Dream?
Yes, he was awesome. Very cool.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you reminiscing about